I'm Jean-Sébastien from IEECP, which stands for Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, and I have the pleasure to be the coordinator of the European project ENSMOV Plus, who is organizing together with ATEE this European workshop. And you may have seen the agenda for today. It's quite dense, so I will not take more time to present the agenda. You have it probably with you. I will just give a quick introduction on the project and provide an overview of the energy efficiency obligation scheme in Europe, because that's the topic we will discuss today. As you may have seen in the introduction video, Article 8 is also about alternative measures, but today we really focus on energy efficiency obligation schemes, and maybe that's why we are in France. You will understand that in a second. So what is ENSMOV Plus? That's a project that is made to share experience among member states for the implementation of the Article 8 of the Energy Efficiency Directive. So maybe some of you were familiar with Article 7 before. Well, that's the same, not completely. We will see that with a presentation by the Commission right after me. But if you want to remember the title, maybe that's better. So that's Energy Saving Obligation. Our target group includes the whole spectrum of stakeholders, from public authorities to obligated parties to also the energy efficiency industry. And we cover the whole policy cycle, so from the design of the policy until the evaluation and the redesign if it's needed. We have 14 partners from 12 countries, so quite a good coverage already of the diversity of countries in Europe, and also diversity in types of partners. So we have public authorities and energy agencies and institutes, two national association of stakeholders, so included ATEE, who organized the workshop today, and also FIERE from Italy. You will meet Dario Di Santo very soon, and 4 research labs and think tanks, including IEECP. So why we do this project, and why is experience sharing essential? Because if we look at the results from the previous period of the energy savings obligation from the Energy Efficiency Directive, you can see a diversity of achievement, or under or over achievement, to be more precise. And you can see also from this slide that it's not related directly to the strategy adopted by the member states. So the implementing an obligation scheme, that's not a guarantee for you to meet your targets. And that's probably what we will discuss also today, having in mind that the targets are increasing. The background, we are a continuation of a previous ENSMOV project that you may have heard about, and we are also in a kind of ecosystem of projects with many sisters projects in the past or currently, covering the whole spectrum of the policy cycle as well. What we deliver includes activities like today, so workshops, webinars, and so on, and resources that you can find on our online platform. And from next year, we will also develop 2 tasks on modeling exercises. Just very briefly to give you examples of the type of resources we develop. So there are some that are examples per country of good practices or interesting examples. So we did that, for example, on the use of measurement, and Solentum later today will give you a more comprehensive overview of the resources we have developed in the first year of the project. And Sam Thomas, who will moderate the first session after me, led the report you can see on your left, all right, left, that analyzed the changes brought by the 55 package to the energy savings obligation. So not only the changes in the Energy Efficiency Directive, not only in Article 8, but also from other legislation that have been revised in the 2 last years. We do activities like the workshop today. I'll also mention the webinar we did in November, because there will be, after me, a presentation by Margot, Pinault, and Edyta Nowak about the new directive. But today we have to be short on that, and if you want to more discussion, you can look at more details. You can look at this webinar. So what about the energy efficiency obligation schemes in Europe, and what do we think that it was a good idea to have a workshop focus on that? because that's the policy instrument that brought the largest share of savings in the past and most probably in the future. So on your left, you see the distribution of cumulative savings reported by member states according to the type of policy instruments. And so energy efficiency obligation scheme is 1/3, more or less. And on your right, you see the share, the same distribution, but for the new annual energy savings in 2021. So the first year of the new period. So in that case, you may think that the share of obligation scheme has dropped, but don't forget that the obligation is cumulative. So when you look at only new annual savings in 1 year, energy taxes is up and obligation scheme is down. But when you will reach the end of the period, you will see exactly the opposite, because the savings achieved for an obligation scheme are usually from actions that have a long lifetime, especially longer than 10 years. So 1 unit of energy savings achieved in 2021 will count 10 times for the cumulative savings of the Article 8. Energy taxes, that's considered as renewed savings every year, so that counts for 1. So 1 unit done in 2021, that's 1 against 10 for obligation scheme. Okay, so you get the picture. Where do we stand in terms of who has an obligation scheme in Europe for the moment? So we have 13 schemes. You can see the list and the distribution. Now only France is using an obligation scheme only. Luxembourg, for the moment, has reported also savings only from its obligation scheme, but is planning to report as well alternative measures in the coming years. The last time we had a meeting like this was from the previous project, ENSMOV, that was in December 2019, so a complete different world, I would say. But there have not been so many changes in what countries are implementing obligation scheme, which shows that also it's a long-lasting policy. When you enter into that, it's an investment to start your policy, and usually you don't do it only for 1 or 2 years. There were 2 schemes that were closed, Austria and Denmark. If you want to know more about it, I will be available during the coffee break. And there are two schemes who started since that. So Hungary in 2021 and Cyprus in 2023 that you will have the pleasure to learn more from in the session after the coffee break. And also another novelty that you will learn in the first session before the coffee break is the start of the white certificate scheme in Spain. About the results more specifically per country of the obligation schemes. So from the graph on the left, maybe you understand why we are in France. That's the results from the cumulative savings for the previous period, 2014 to 2020. Savings reported from the energy efficiency obligation schemes. Don't take me wrong, the fact that France goes up is also due to the size, okay? That's the country has a larger consumption, let's say, than Austria, for example, so obviously they have more savings to achieve. But that's also good to have sometimes this type of figures in mind. On the right, you see more relative figures with 2 series. So the one in blue, that's the share of savings reported from obligation schemes in the total new annual savings reported by the member states. So for example, for France, that's 100% because France only report the obligation schemes. And you can see that, for example, for Ireland, that was a bit more than half of their savings that come from the obligation scheme. The other half come from alternative measures. In most countries having an obligation schemes, the obligation scheme is their top measures, so the ones with the largest share. The exceptions are Italy and Poland, as you can see on this graph. The second graph on that is in orange. That's the comparison of the total, so not only the savings from obligation schemes, but all the savings reported by the member state for 2021 compared to the equivalent rate of new savings they would need to do to meet their new target for 2021-2030, with the assumption that these savings will last until 2030. So you can see that some have quite a good start. So France again is not bad on this situation, while others may need to catch up to get on track to their targets. So that's where we stand today. You will learn more details about 8 schemes, so 7 member states plus UK, because today that's a European workshop from a point of view of the geography, and we are very, very happy to have together with us our British colleagues today. That's not always, unfortunately, not now that they can attend. And to know more about the future, I will now invite to the stage Margot Pinault and Edyta Nowak from the European Commission, who will tell us, who will summarize, let's say, the main things you should remind from the new directive. You can, I will open your presentation. Please join. Okay. Just share for the participants.
Good morning to everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and grateful for the invitation, for the organization. So many thanks to the coordination team of the ENSMOV Plus project and to our hosts, so ATE and EDF, for this beautiful location with really great view. We couldn't dream about better. So I'm very happy that we have this workshop because indeed energy efficiency obligation schemes is the way of implementation of energy saving obligation that from the Commission perspective is a preferred way. As highlighted in the precedent speech by Jean-Sébastien, this way of implementing ensure long-term measures, structural measures, and the other advantage is also that it is underpinning creation of an energy efficiency market and building energy efficiency business case. And this is something on what we really very much count, because we believe that all the additional values that energy efficiency bring to our society, our economy, are currently not properly evaluated by the market. And that's why so much hope is placed in these white certificate schemes, in this energy efficiency obligation schemes, to create this market dimension for energy efficiency, just beyond only savings being repaying the investments. And of course, France is pioneering in the white certificate scheme, so it's great to exchange the experience here and to follow the good practice example and learn lessons. So I will give you the introduction to Energy Efficiency Directive recast and the changes there. And I'm here with my colleague Edyta Nowak. So we both work in Energy Efficiency Unit of the Directorate General for Energy in the European Commission. I'm the team leader for Policy Development and Strategy team, and Edyta is the article specialist of the articles that we are discussing today, so 8, 9, 10 in the new directive, and before it was 7. So just about the state of play of the directive, as you probably all know, it has been adopted on the 13th of December, published, and now entered into force on the 10th of October. And member states have, in general, transposition time to prepare the transposition and bringing these measures into the national laws of 2 years for the majority of the provisions. And to recall the context, but of course, everybody knows, I think, why we are doing this. This is to accelerate our climate ambition and to bring the EU back on track to 1.5 degree scenario, because, as you know, current projections show that we will be rather as globally reaching 3 degrees of global warming if there is no additional effort, and that's why we need the additional effort to be done. And that's why Fit for 55 package, to accelerate the transition and energy efficiency with higher ambition, higher targets, stronger measures. Why do we need energy efficiency in the decarbonization? Because simply it ensures the most cost-effective way of achieving the decarbonization. We can achieve decarbonization in many different ways, but the objective is to do it cost-effectively, cost-efficiently, and in a sustainable manner. And only by putting energy efficiency first can ensure such a cost effectiveness and resource efficiency. And that's why we focus on this. One more element which is important to add. The additional increase of the ambition was also caused by another well-known factor, which is energy crisis caused by the war in Ukraine and REPowerEU communication, which aims to phase out Russian fossil fuels imports by 2027. And for that, modeling showed that energy efficiency efforts should further be increased because, as also past year showed us, energy savings are the best way to ensure our energy security. So that's the other argument. So what is in the revised directive? Of course, increased target for 2030, which is at the level of 11.7% for primary and final energy consumption reduction comparing to 2020 scenario. The target is binding for final energy consumption reduction and indicative for primary energy consumption reduction. And this is the EU level target to which member states will contribute with the national contributions. Also there is a governance mechanism to make sure, and the Commission will make sure that these contributions add up to the level of ambition at EU level, and then that there is credibility in terms of measures to achieve the targets. The second important element is energy efficiency first principle, which has its own article, new article, Article 3. And as said, this principle is guiding the transition because this ensures a cost-efficient and resource-efficient manner. But now we have a clear obligation to respect this principle whenever taking major decisions, investments, planning, and strategy. And that's what is in the article. Energy savings obligation, of which the ambition is increased, and this Edyta will present you. Stronger role of public sector with a whole chapter dedicated to public sector in the recast directive, with a new target of final energy consumption reduction by 1.9% annually. Continuation of obligation of renovation public buildings, which scope is enlarged because now it covers not only central government buildings, but all public administration buildings. And finally, public procurement, considering energy efficiency in public procurement. Finally, focus on alleviating energy poverty. This is another sensible conclusion. To alleviate energy poverty in a durable manner, the best way is to invest in structural improvements of energy efficiency. And the elements of that are included also under Article 8. Thank you, and I pass the floor to Edyta.
Hello, good morning. My name is Edyta Nowak. I am a member of Energy Efficiency Unit in European Commission. I am also a member of a team led by Margot. And I am an article specialist for Articles 8, 9, 10, and 11. So if anyone is interested in the side discussion on Article 11, you know where to find me. But moving to the subject of today's conference, so energy savings obligation. As Margot has explained, the Energy Efficiency Directive recast significantly raises the energy efficiency target, EU binding, and therefore it is complemented by, of course, increased target under Article 8, paragraph 1. What we see here is a phased-in staged approach to the higher level of new annual energy savings to be achieved as of 2024. 2024-25 is 1.3%. Then 2026, 2027, 1.5%, and from onwards 1.9%. Of new annual savings. Then the member states will have to continue with the last figure, which is 1.9% for the following obligation periods beyond 2030. For the moment, Malta and Cyprus, they retain their derogation, so they have a lower savings obligation of new annual savings of 0.45%, but as of 2031, they will have to apply also the new rate of 1.9. Speaking about the targets, we call it energy poverty share, but it's also a kind of the target. It is a novelty brought by energy efficiency recast, and member states will have to achieve share of the total amount of energy savings among specific target groups. That is people affected by energy poverty, vulnerable customers, people in low-income households, and, where applicable, people living in social housing. To establish the energy poverty share, member states can use two methods described under Article 8, paragraph 3, which is the default method. This is the one notified under NECPs or updated NECPs, or the fallback option using for specific indicators. Then one word about reporting. So especially the new Article 8, paragraph 11, makes the links and alignment with the governance regulation, and especially on the reporting under updated NECPs. Just to align the two pieces of legislation, ED recast and the governance regulation, and related to the increased ambition and increased level of the energy savings obligation. So in the draft and or final updated NECPs, the member states will have to also provide the information on the required amount of energy savings, description of the policy measures, and calculation methodologies. And then a brand new novelty, carryover of achievement or underachievement of the target. Basically, the current ED provides for the, we call it cut-off periods, so there is no possibility of carrying over either missed or surplus savings. But now the new Article 8, paragraph 13 allows for it, but it is applicable only for it will be relevant only as we move from this obligation period to the next obligation period, because these provisions are forward-looking and not working backwards. Therefore, if the member state did not achieve their required amount of cumulative energy savings, these member states will be required to achieve the missed savings in the next obligation period. Whereas if a member state has done a good job and has a surplus, up to 10% of this surplus can be carried over to the next obligation period. And it does not mean that the required amount of the energy savings for the next obligation period will be increased. It will remain as it should be, but the 10% can be already carried over. Once again, this doesn't work for the past obligation period. So whatever has been missed, unfortunately, remains missed. Then about Annex 5. Basically, the main principles of the energy savings obligation and of the calculation methodologies and all the principles under Annex 5, they basically remain the same. Most of the changes are not changes to Annex 5, are actually minor. Not all are minor. And the most relevant is, of course, fossil fuel exclusion, but this will be explained by Margot, who's specialist on phasing out of all fossil fuels. But so this is fossil fuel exclusion can be viewed as like the major change, but the rest we would say these are more either clarifications or explanations or some adjustments to make Annex 5 more workable. And then we have some additions on policy objectives. Basically, member states will have to demonstrate that one of the objectives of the policy measures is the achievement of the end-use energy savings, and then to provide documentation evidence that the reported energy savings are caused by a policy measure. So this was the clarification here. About additionality. Additionality remains the main principle along with the materiality. And here we have like additional clarifications. This is related to the renovation of the existing buildings. So there was a kind of the derogation from the principle of additionality under Annex 5 related to the renovation of existing buildings. And here there is an addition that relates to the minimum energy performance standards in buildings. This was included a little bit forward-looking in view of the developments related to the EPBD revision and ongoing negotiations. As we know, EPBD is negotiated as we speak, but like the basic wording was already included in Annex 5 to make sure that also all these savings resulting from the implementation of the minimum and energy performance standards, when they become applicable, they can be also accounted for the purpose of energy saving obligation. And the second clarification was added in relation to the emergency measures as a result of the energy crisis and the war in Ukraine, and energy measures taken in the context of the Repower EU, and notably gas demand reduction regulation. Therefore, energy improvement measures taken under this energy emergency regulations can be accounted for, with the exception of the curtailment measures that cannot be rationing and curtailment measures that cannot be accounted for. Then there are additional clarifications on interactions with EU ETS. That the main principle continues to be the same as it was. So member states can count energy savings from policy measures in sectors or installations covered by EU ETS, as long as savings result from the implementation of energy savings obligation schemes or alternative policy measures. And the policy measures have to go beyond the basic requirements of the EU ETS, so the mere implementation of the EU ETS, and or beyond the implementation of the actions linked to the allocation of free allowances. This is the link that was made to the amended EU ETS directive, that now the installations that want to claim 100% of their free allowances, they, in order to receive entire 100%, they have to implement energy audits recommendations with the payback period less than 3 years. Therefore, if any policy measures and resulting savings are to be accounted, they have to go beyond this requirement for the achievement of the free allowances. And then we arrived at fossil fuels exclusion, and I hand over back to Margot. Thank you.
Thanks, Edyta, and we make this presentation much more entertaining, I think, in this exchanging one from another. Okay, indeed, this is the provision under Article 8 that I'm dealing with, so I will present it to you. First of all, the rationale of having this exclusion is kind of straightforward, because it was part of Fit for 55 package, so it's obvious that public policies should stop supporting new fossil fuel technologies. New fossil fuel equipment is totally coherent with the whole philosophy of Fit for 55 decarbonization, and it gained its significance even more through REPowerEU, where we really have a date for phasing out fossil fuels, and that's why these provisions are here. Just to make a very important clarification, we do not aim excluding measures that reduce the use of fossil fuels in the existing installations or existing equipment. What we would like to avoid through this restriction is investments in new capacities, in new equipment, in new technologies that will create this lock-in effect for the society or economy in fossil fuel use for many, many years. And that's why we really aim new support to new investments, new technologies being put in place through under the scheme of energy savings obligation. How it will work? It will work in two phases. The first phase is as of January 2024, and it makes non-eligible all the energy savings that are resulting from newly implemented policy measures that support the direct fossil fuel combustion in products, equipment, transport, vehicles, buildings, etc. So here it's a partial restriction. The measure is still eligible, but the part of the savings that is coming directly from this technology, fossil fuel technology that was supported by this measure, is not eligible anymore under Article 8. And then as, in the second phase, as of 2026, 1st of January, the measure becomes ineligible if it contains public policy support to fossil fuel, if it contains subsidy to fossil fuel. And this will concern all the newly implemented policy measures, and even more strictly in the residential sector, all policy measures existing or newly implemented. So as of 2026, no more subsidies to fossil fuel technologies through Article 8 in residential sector. And I didn't mention that there was also the derogation granted to energy-intensive industries until 2030, where energy savings from fossil fuels technologies can still be eligible, provided that there is no alternative. So energy-intensive, very high-temperature industrial processes, where currently at the current technology development stage, we have no alternative, and there is a replacement of this technology by a much more efficient one. This still can be accepted until 2030, and the energy savings could be still eligible, but there are very strict conditions where such a derogation can be granted. Thank you very much, and I wish you good discussions, and happy to answer your questions later or discuss. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Margot and Edyta, for, well, and actually congratulations, I think, on the new directive.